Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really cutting through the noise, digging into the big headlines and maybe some stories you missed from August 18th, 2025. Our aim is to give you those key insights, the stuff that helps you feel genuinely informed. We'll touch on high-stakes diplomacy, market jitters, environmental alerts, even some strange local happenings.
And what's really key, I think, is seeing the connections. It's not just what's happening, but understanding the why, the sort of underlying currents linking events across the globe that gives you the bigger picture,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We've got sources from all over: AP News, Financial Times, sure, but also more specialized stuff, social media buzz. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start at the top with some pretty significant diplomacy.
So the main focus today, diplomatically speaking, was Washington. President Zelenskyy was there, meeting President Trump, senior European leaders too, and the NATO chief. This all comes after those talks in Alaska, which were, well, pretty inconclusive. Right. And what's striking now, post-Alaska, is you can really feel the pressure intensifying on Ukraine, specifically around potential territorial concessions. What's fascinating here, I think, is the split. You have President Trump seemingly pushing for these, let's say, broad peace discussions, maybe looking for a faster resolution over, nailing down immediate ceasefire terms.
Right.
But then the EU leaders, they're really digging in, rallying for much stronger, more concrete security commitments for Ukraine. It's a real contrast in approach playing out right now. Makes the whole situation very dynamic.
And with these talks hanging in the balance, how does that actually ripple out? What are we seeing in the markets? How does this uncertainty hit, our economies?
Well, and the markets definitely had a mixed day. You could almost say they were holding their breath, basically waiting for any kind of clear signal from that Trump-Zelenskyy summit. And it's interesting because even though the earlier talks weren't decisive, this specific meeting still caused quite a bit of market sensitivity. Suggests investors are maybe more focused on the potential for a breakthrough than the current gridlock.
That's a subtle shift.
It is. U.S. rates, oil prices, Asian stocks, they were all really reactive to these geopolitical whispers. Plus, you've got speculation building around the Fed, what they might signal at Jackson Hole soon, that big annual gathering.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, it just shows how quickly that high-level diplomacy translates into real financial tremors.
Okay, so beyond the closed doors of diplomacy, these global pressures are also really visible on the ground, aren't they? Thinking about public actions, strategic moves. Let's look at Israel, a major nationwide strike today. This was led by the families of hostages, demanding more pressure on Hamas, demanding a stop to the war in Gaza. President Herzog also gave a very emotional address at Hostages Square. It really highlights the public feeling behind this.
Yeah, that kind of civil action, especially with such raw emotion and clear demands, it really raises questions about how public pressure can, influence state decisions in these incredibly tense situations. Historically, these movements can sometimes shift the needle. It's definitely something to watch.
And then, shifting from that very public personal protest, we also saw a more, let's say, traditional show of force. The USS Gerald R. Carrier Strike Group. That's the newest U.S. carrier.
One, very advanced.
Right. It was sailing through the Strait of Dover today, with several destroyers alongside it. That's a critical waterway.
Absolutely. And that transit, it's a clear signal. It's about demonstrating continued NATO presence, NATO capability in the North Sea region. It's a very deliberate projection of naval strength in a strategically vital area for trade and defense.
Meanwhile, as all this unfolds, communities are dealing with more immediate threats, specifically severe weather. Over in Oman, authorities have put out warnings. Looks like 5 days of heavy rain, thunderstorms, rough seas expected. They're urging everyone, especially maritime operators, to be really cautious.
And those warnings are just crucial, aren't they? It highlights how vital timely information is for safety, for the economy too, particularly in regions reliant on shipping that can be hit hard by sudden weather shifts. It also, I think, points to the increasing challenge of extreme weather in places perhaps not historically used to this level of intensity.
Yeah, absolutely. And then closer to home for many listeners, there's Hurricane Erin. It's now a powerful storm, and it's threatening dangerous surf, coastal flooding along the U.S. East Coast. Alerts are definitely up.
Right, and Erin is a stark reminder of how these large-scale atmospheric patterns translate into very real, very immediate local danger. Global news isn't always distant. Sometimes it's an urgent warning right on your doorstep needing a quick response.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. This one caught my eye today. Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan.
The very modern one.
That's it. It's apparently been named the world's library capital. They're hosting the big World Library and Information Congress right now. Librarians, information specialists from all over talking about the future of sharing knowledge.
You know, what's interesting there is this global focus on information and the role of libraries, even now, maybe especially now in the digital age. It really ties into bigger questions about like how we manage and access knowledge when there's just so much information flooding in, information literacy, accessibility, all that.
Good point. And finally, let's touch on a really curious local story generating buzz online. This is out of Virginia. There are these wild rumors on social media about an ice cream truck.
An ice cream truck.
Yeah, supposedly linked to missing child reports. It keeps appearing nightly, apparently. And it's causing this mix of, real unease, but also quite a bit of skepticism among residents.
That's fascinating because it perfectly shows how a local concern, a whisper almost, can just explode on social media, right? It really highlights the power of community fears amplified online. Whether there's truth to it or not, it becomes a major talking point, shapes local feeling. It's a sort of modern folklore in action almost.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground today in this deep dive. From those tense diplomatic meetings in Washington and the market reactions to military movements, those urgent weather alerts, and even down to library congresses and strange local rumors. The goal, as always, was to give you that concise but comprehensive look at our interconnected world on August 18th, 2025.
So what's the takeaway for you listening? I think it's really about seeing those threads, how geopolitics impacts your finances, how military posture relates to global stability, how weather affects communities directly, and even how local stories can, go viral and reflect broader anxieties. It's all part of this incredibly complex tapestry. These things aren't really separate.
Absolutely. And maybe one final thought to leave you with. Think about the speed of information today. Fact. Rumor, everything travels so fast, and our understanding of the world is constantly being shaped by this flood of sources. So what responsibility does that put on us, as people trying to stay informed? Does it mean we need to dig deeper, question more, look beyond just the initial headline?